Hey, friends. I'm your host, Dr. Elizabeth Ssemanda, the intuitive psychiatrist, and you're listening to Stepping into Soul Power. Friends, we're living in dynamic times. And unfortunately, some people are losing jobs. Some people that have jobs are feeling it, burnt
Mhm.
out. In fact, studies are showing maybe 44 to 66% of people are feeling burnt out, and it's hard. It is hard out there. But what if burnout wasn't just about things breaking down? What if burnout is a call? It is a call for a breakthrough, calling you back to your true self. Our guest today is professor, speaker. She's a transformational strategist. She helps high performing individuals go from exhaustion to inspiration, and she is just such an inspirational force that is truly, truly, truly making uh, making a heartfelt, authentic change in the world. Dr. Danielle McGeough, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. You got me blushing.
There is authenticity there, and it's such a beautiful thing. I wonder, for people who are new to you, what led you down this path to really want to address burnout?
So, I was not the smart kid growing up. I was definitely the weird kid. And when I was 20, I decided I wanted to get a PhD. But I told myself that the only way that I would be able to do it is if I worked twice as hard as everyone else. And so I created all of the habits, work habits, study habits, life habits. You got to have it. I'm going to stack it. And
Ooh.
you know, yeah. And the wild thing is it worked. I got the PhD, I got the dream job, I got tenure. And when I got there, I just felt flat, empty. I was like flat and overwhelmed all at once. And I was definitely burnout, and I believe I was also demoralized. I felt like the work that I was doing, whew, it wasn't making the impact that I felt like could it could be making. And it was wildly frustrating to feel that way. And so I knew that something needed to change, but I didn't even know where I wanted to go because I was so disconnected from myself. It's just years and years of dissociating from myself
Mhm.
with these habits that I know helped me create success, but I also know that habits are designed to be automatic,
Yes.
to become unconscious. And what I really needed was ritual, something that I should have known because that's something I study, but
Yes.
rituals are infused with meaning.
Mhm.
And so I needed to replace some, not all, but some of my automatic habits with meaning filled rituals.
Can you speak a little bit to that? You're talking about rituals, and it's a how it's infused with meaning. Are there specific small rituals that you have found to be helpful for people as far as reconnecting with themselves when they're feeling overwhelmed?
Yes. I think that that was one of the first things that I needed
Mm.
because I actually remember my supervisor bringing me in after I gotten tenure and was like, "Friend, you got tenure. That's awesome stuff. So what's next? What's your 5-year plan?" And I remember thinking, "Bruh, I don't even know what I want to eat for dinner, let alone like 5 years from now." And and so I started with some rituals that I would have described as time management at the time, but now I see as ways that I was collecting data on myself. So I would go to plan in my calendar, and I was doing that because I was so overwhelmed. I just wanted to find strategies, hacks to be able to manage my time better. And I felt like if I could just do that, then maybe I'll have more spaciousness in my life. But what was wild is actually in the ritual of planning. paired with, I would say, journaling prompts, reflection, I started to learn about myself again. I would just ask myself things like, "Ooh, what did bring me energy last week? What was lighting me up? What was draining me?" And I'd start to realize, "Oh, that thing that I thought I liked, I was just kind of faking for other people." And I would also start to notice the things that did light me up and reconnect with them, because I do think as we get older and we start doing all of the things, it can be really easy to still think that the things that you like are the things you liked when you were 20. I remember, like, working with a client, and I was like, "What lights you up?" And she was like, "Volleyball." And then she was like, "Wait, I haven't played volleyball in 15 years." She's like, "That's what I loved in my 20s." She's
Mm,
like, "I like baking now." And sometimes we forget that even just our favorite things have shifted. And so
mhm.
for me, I started with a ritual of just basic planning in the morning. What are 3 things that if I did today, I would feel really good about it? At the end of the week, what are some patterns that I noticed? And having that ritual time of reflection made a huge difference.
Yes. Oh, that's so powerful. In the world of psychiatry, we love self-reflection just because, it's kinda like what you said, we can get so busy with just doing life that we forget to really start looking within ourselves or asking ourselves the important questions, and it sounds like you were doing that. Can you paint a picture for us about how adding this has transformed your life?
Hmm. So I might start by offering a little bit more of a picture of the before,
Okay.
and then kind of describe the difference. So when I was in that moment of burnout and demoralization, a lot of other tough stuff was happening. I just had my first kiddo, my second kiddo was on the way.
Oh,
Yeah, so I'd had mastitis 9 times in 9 months. I
no.
was diagnosed with postpartum anxiety. Our house, we had a water main break and it flooded out our basement. At the same time, we only had 1 full bathroom, and it's kind of a long story, but there was no floor in the bathroom. So we were living in my parents' basement while these house repairs were being done. And so it was just like one of those moments where you're like, "Come on, world. Really? Are you gonna keep hitting me with this?" And so at that time too, y'all, I was so annoyed with my husband. So we had been married for 10 years before we had kids, and marriage was always really easy for me. I was
Wow.
like,
That is
people.
a hold on. You are an anomaly right here. Not a lot of people can say that, but hey.
Well, see, I learned my lesson because I remember people being like, "Oh, marriage, you gotta work at it." And I'd be like, "Really? Like, this is pretty easy. It's my best friend. We travel together. We work together. He's a nerdy professor too." And so we were kind of like life buds. And all of a sudden, I'm the one nursing. I'm the one dealing with mastitis. I'm like, why am I doing the dishes? Like
For
there's
real.
for real. Like, some of those gender role stuff really started to rise to the surface at that time,
Yes.
I was struggling with postpartum anxiety. He has ADHD, and when you aren't sleeping, it was kind of like both of our mental health muck. We we didn't have the same resources available to navigate them, and we were both a mess. And I think that that was actually a huge wake up call for me because I could imagine losing my job. That would have been really, really hard. I could imagine my house, like needing a different house. But the idea that my marriage was a mess was this thing where I'm like, I've got to figure out how to get this right because that's not something I'm willing to sacrifice. And so I think that that picture is so important to paint because it sounds so silly to say, "Oh, you got out stickers with your planner and you reflected and you did these little rituals," and it seems wild to go, "Now, boom, my marriage is strong. I have way more energy and excitement about my work. I know what my value is. I'm bold and taking risks in ways that I wouldn't have ever thought of." But I'm also probably internally, my brain used to be going, it was just flying all the time. And now I'm like, ooh, it's kind of quiet in there. That feels really good. And I have such a strong sense of agency. Like, this is what I have control over. This is what I don't. And the things that I don't, it's okay. I'm at peace with. But the things that I know that I can control, I got this. And it's so hard to explain that I'm just really flippin' healthy.
Wow, there's so much in what you just said. I think about what you went through, your story, and God bless you. And I just have one child. I have one, and I know when you have a child, it's a huge change. It is a huge change. For people who are resistant, reluctant to change, what can they do to move in that direction?
I do think that it took me the first step was me deciding that I wanted a shift and that it needed to come from me. Because at first, I think that I was definitely a little bit in the blame game. I was blaming my husband, I was blaming academic systems, I was blaming the work structures, and I wanna acknowledge that there's crap there, right? That, like, I wasn't wrong, right? There are things about our work structures that are not designed to support women that just had kids,
Yeah,
right? There
absolutely. Yes.
Yes, there are gender roles. There is all this structural, systemic crap that needs to be changed. And so I wasn't wrong there. But some of those things I didn't have the capacity at that point to be the one championing those changes, and they weren't going to be able to happen fast enough for me to be well. So I needed to go, what is within my sphere of control? And it hurt, y'all. It kind of stung to go, some of this is within my ability to make a difference. And it also stung a bit to go, you need to get yourself well so that you have the energy, the clear mindedness, and the ability to tackle some of these bigger things. And so I do think you have to be willing to change and to recognize that maybe you're playing a part. You are complicit in some of the crap, and that flipping hurts.
There's a lot of truth in that. It can be hard to take responsibility for what's going on. I wonder, as you've made this transformation, what are the different things within you, within your world that have changed? How are you redefining yourself?
So I think that one thing that's kind of odd is that I didn't think of myself as ambitious. So here I was stacking all them habits, going, 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 working twice as hard. And if you would have asked me, like, are you ambitious? I would have said no. I wasn't the person that needed to get perfect grades in high school. I never tried to go to an Ivy League college. It actually never even entered my mind that that could be a possibility. I'm like a little small town girl from Iowa, and there was something really empowering about going, Danielle, you are ambitious.
Mm.
Quit trying to sort of resist it, own it, but also recognize that there's a cost to that ambition. And how do we want to re-identify ambition as something that's maybe, this is going to sound counterintuitive, but gentle? What does it look to like to have gentle ambition? What does it look like? Can I be content and ambitious simultaneously? And to kind of hold some of those paradoxes in tension with each other. So I think that one, owning my bigness was important because it also felt like owning my worthiness.
Help me understand that, to make that link for us about this worthiness.
I think that my resistance to claim ambition was also me doing this, oh shucks, I'm no big deal. Like I was keeping myself small as a way to please others. And there is a flippin' mental tax to that too. And when instead I was willing to go, you are ambitious, you do want big things. Yes, you have a kid, but you still get to dream.
Yes. For all the
When
mothers, yes.
yes,
Don't let
and
that stop you.
yes, and once I could just admit that to myself, I could also go, "You are kinda big sometimes, Danielle, and you're worthy of taking up space,
Mm.
and you're worthy of having dreams, and you're worthy of resting when you need to rest because you're gonna do this gentle, ambitious thing that seems to make no sense, but you're gonna embody it anyway."
Wow, I love that. Owning your bigness, like, just stepping into your worth. Yes. I'm all for it. I wanna ask, because 'cause we've been talking about burnout on a very individual level, but teams can burn out, family can burn out, there are burnt out communities out here in this world. And so I wanna ask if you could speak a little bit to that. What does that look like, and what might we be able to start to shift when we're looking at things on a bigger than individual level?
I love that question, in part because I'm so fascinated by the way that the self and the social are so intimately and intricately connected. And it's also a doozy of a question. Like, this is
We
a
can
tough
break it
one.
down, don't
I'm
worry
like,
about it.
like, because I'm like, oh, if I can just solve this, like, we're gonna champion all sorts of change.
Oh.
Together, let's go. Um, so one, I would say one thing that I had a student give a presentation clear back in May, and it's just stuck with me ever since. She said that burnout and demoralization aren't the same thing. And so I dipped into the research, and she was right. There's actually a ton of research that came out on burnout post, like during COVID, especially around teachers and nurses.
Mm,
So, and a lot of them distinguish between burnout, demoralization, and disengagement.
mhm,
And there's overlap. There's definitely overlap. But in a nutshell, burnout is really connected to how much and the pace at which we do things. And there are things that are cooked into our systems, our work systems, or our family systems, everything from policies that might hold those systems into place, how we make up urgency with due dates, thinking about families, the pressure to have your kids in 50 million activities, what is a good mom, right? Like cultural notions of what is a good mom, and that also conflicting with maybe what we need to do in our professional roles. And so there are all of these things that play into this like go, go, go mentality that can lead to burnout. Demoralization is when it feels like the systems and the structures are blocking you from making the change that you think is possible. So
Mm,
you're like, "Why do this anymore?"
oh,
Right? Like, "Why do this anymore?" Because it's not making any difference. And I hear that, and then that leads to people disengaging, saying, "Fine, I'm out." Right? The quiet quitting that we heard about a couple of years ago.
yes.
And so I think that what's really interesting is some of this needs to happen thinking about our policies in our workplaces. So, for example, thinking about our leave policies or caregiver policies. A lot of parents right now too are finding themselves, having young kids at the same time doing caregiving for older generations. And that's a whopper of a thing to hold, and then, like, you have your own bodies doing weird stuff, it's like, "Oh my gosh,
True.
you're going through perimenopause and taking care of aging parents and taking care of young ones all at the same time." Um, I also think, though, there are cultural things we can do in the workplace in terms of, like, what are our expectations around emailing and how
Mm,
quickly we would expect an email back, or when we send emails, I'm like, "Friends, there's this wonderful technology called schedule send. You don't have to send me an email on the weekend. You can schedule it for Monday at 8 a.m." There are just these little things that we can do that is both sort of individual, but also is about creating a culture together and recognizing too the ways that even if things are structural or cultural, that individuals, you can still take ownership in creating the cultures that you want to be part of.
absolutely. I think there's so much truth in that. I think having one person can change things. The presence, the conversation can change. Like, I have seen it. So there is promise. If you're in a system that is not working, that's not working, like, you might be that change. You could be that change. I'm in the world of medicine, and this can be a really tough thing, or even corporate, like, people don't wanna talk about like, it can be really tough to have these types of conversations, and I wonder, are there specific things that people can do to initiate that conversation within their spaces, places, situations?
Yeah. So, one really lovely thing to do is to propose a book club. And the reason that I say this is maybe I'm in a nerdy environment where people want to read. But I think that there's something really helpful if you can say, "Hey, we're gonna read." For us, it's The Slow Professor, but maybe whatever your area is, you might be able to your workplaces, can you find a book that would get them thinking about the pace of their culture and their policies and their practices? And I think that what's lovely about having a book club is you don't feel like you're coming at them with the ideas. You just say, "Let's read this book and discuss it." And then they can come up together with the ideas for ways that they can implement what the book is bringing about into the workplace. So that's like a really lovely way, I think, to sometimes start conversations. And if that doesn't work, have an awesome podcast that you listen to, like this one, and have your office listen to the podcast together and then discuss it at lunch. There's just ways that you don't, that way you can say, "Oh, this is what Elizabeth said on her podcast. What do you all think about that idea?" And it doesn't have to come across as threatening, nearly as, I think, scary, or they can come up with the ideas and go, "We should do this." And you're like, "Yes, we should." And so, like, that's been a really effective tool, I think, for me. I also learned to ask for what you need. This is a lesson I keep coming back to, but I was like, I have all these skills and these talents. I'm just going to ask the president of my university if I could create a program for faculty and staff that would lead them through a lot of this stuff so that we could reassert our feelings of autonomy, purpose, and mastery in our work. And I'm like, I'm just going to write up a proposal and we're going to see what lands. And he said, sure, go for it. So now, like, I lead a strategic growth lab at my university. And what's been amazing is then people have heard that I do this and they're like, hey, could you bring this to our law firm? Could you bring this to our tech firm? And then I'm like, sweet, let's go. And so there's just been so many times I had this happen just last week. I was like, "Oh, I'm planning things in my business. I know I can do this on my own, but I'd love to do it in community." So
Yeah.
I just sent one of my entrepreneur friends an email and I said, "Hey, you want to get a group together and do this?" And she's like, "Oh, I'd love to. Could I lead it?" And I'm like, "Yes." And
Uh,
I think that there's just so many times that all we need to do is ask.
oh, yes. Yes. I love it. I love it. Oh, and I love this growth. Oh, yes, yes, yes. I told you, friends, she's doing great things in the world. It's
I'm
it
trying.
it is it's inspiring. It's inspiring. I did want to ask, well, our spirit, our soul is always speaking to us. And I wonder for you, when you think about burnout, what do you think it means? Like it's what message is it trying to tell you on a soul level?
Mm. I think that for me, I was not only disconnected from myself, I think I was disconnected from my spiritual connection.
Mm,
That I couldn't hear myself, I couldn't hear, God or a higher power, whatever source, whatever word you want to use. But I think my soul was tired,
yeah.
right? And I had quit listening to myself. And because I was just trying to get stuff done. And so I do think that it can be I don't wish burnout on anyone. But if you're in truly not just like I'm having a hard week and I'm tired, but like a soul deep burnout moment, I do think that that's an indication that you need to reconnect and that it's not enough, I think, to just take a bubble bath, get a pedicure, even take a week-long sabbatical or vacation. Most of the time, this needs to be a rewiring about how we're moving through the world.
Powerful. Powerful. Oh, yes. For our listeners, because I know they're gonna wanna get in contact. You get ready. They're gonna they're going to want to get in contact with you. How can they find you?
The first thing is, check out my podcast too. I know podcast listeners listen to podcasts. So check out Plan Go Plan, but you can also go to plangoplan.com. And on there, there's also a stuck assessment that will help you indicate how exactly are you stuck. And then it will give you a mini ritual to help you unstick based off of your stuckness. So check it out.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. See this I knew you are a beacon of light. Um, and I just can't wait to see what happens. I just see you flying. Um, but thank you, thank you, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a flippin' joy.
If you haven't heard it yet today, I appreciate you. The soul in me honors the soul in you. If you'd like to see more episodes like this, please subscribe or click here. And friends, if this spoke to you, leave a comment below. We would love to hear from you.